All right. Shalom.
Shalom,
Right.
shalom.
What's good, brethren?
Shalom, my guy. Not much, man. What's going on with you?
Can't call it.
All right, yeah, man. Back in the studio.
Yeah, man. Back in the studio yet again. Time for another podcast. Let me get my mic situated. Hold on.
What happened? Your mic collapsed?
Yeah, just acting weird.
Turn that leg
You gotta turn the leg.
towards you. One of them legs.
Y'all excuse this brother for having his technical difficulties now. He had ample time to prepare.
Y'all can keep talking though.
Well, how's everybody week?
Man, it's been interesting, and plus we're gonna go into some stuff that kind of go inside with this week for me anyway. So you know, is interesting how this conversation came. Actually, the question came up. Actually, I think it's from last week anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the questions is from last week, but we're gonna go a little bit more in depth in it.
Right.
All right. And shalom to everyone out there. I want to thank everyone for listening to the videos, subscribing, sharing them, and you know, putting a thumbs up for them. We just want to thank y'all, man. We're really grateful for it, for real. Y'all just don't. I really don't know. I'm real grateful for, you know, what I've seen, because I'm kind of like the one behind the scenes putting up the videos, so I kind of see certain things that's you know, that goes along with putting these things up. I can see a lot of comments. I can see who subscribe and who doesn't, or whatever like that. And like I said, a lot of people, y'all subscribe on a lot of the reels. Man, we just want to thank y'all, man, for just subscribing to the channels, man.
Yes, as we say in Hebrew, Toda Rabah.
Okay.
Or some brothers say Tawada.
Oh man.
Okay.
The water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
This is a blessing.
yeah, it is.
Before we get started, I just want to say one thing. Well, it's more than one thing, but we're not here to get you to believe anything that we say.
Facts.
We're just sharing perspectives.
And actually, as you probably listen, if you really listen today, it's gonna be some differences in, you know, the brothers on the channels. I mean, on the panel too. So, especially when it comes to some suffering. Suffering. But lay us down with the question, huh? What we got today?
Yeah. So today we'll have a branch off from a question that we had last week, which was addressing suffering,
Right.
and how what we coin as our spiritual system deals with suffering. But this week, man, I just want to kind of get into the dynamics of maybe the why, the how, and then, you know, maybe share some recommendations to improve our consciousness as it relates to suffering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are y'all ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
This is this, by all intents and purposes, is not gonna solve the world's problems.
No.
But what it can do, it can help those of you who are listening, those of you who are receptive, those of you who are maybe even in a certain space of awareness or consciousness. It may resonate with you, and for those who it doesn't resonate with, that's okay as well.
It's all good.
Right.
Oh, you looking at me?
100%.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'll start off with the controversy. Suffering is a choice.
Okay, how so?
Yes.
Well, man, Give me a second, because it's like a lot of things downloading and processing, you know.
Because somebody gonna look at you like, what you mean?
I mean, I've had these conversations, if you want to say, in the past debates,
Right.
you know. So I'll start with saying that the physical vessel, and I had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman. We had a conversation for an hour in Barnes and Nobles, and we were talking about what you see is not the truth of what's there.
Mm-hmm.
So when those who are watching this video, they're looking at three individuals on the screen, there's more behind or more going on
Right.
within, around, on a soul level than the little speck that you see as the individual sitting before you on the screen. This is just a construct or the outer appearance, but the soul is so much more magnanimous. And what I'm saying is we're all here based on choices. So if you could go back from this point, you watching this video, you choosing to watch this video, and start going back throughout your what time is it? It's about like 3:30 maybe?
3:30.
3:30, and start pacing yourself backwards. Your whole day is a culmination of all your choices from the time you woke up. And then if you go before what you woke up, it's still a culmination of choices. So your whole experience in life is based on choices. And as a collective, we all choose together, even though it seems as individualistic. So what I'm saying is, as an individual, on some conscious level, or some level of consciousness, I should say, you've chosen everything that's ever happened to you in your life.
So is that like to say that it's already predetermined on your part?
It's a paradox, because predetermination, you know, it gets into a whole bunch of things.
That's all right. We got time for those things. We got time.
So predetermination, the concept of predetermination, and back when I couldn't articulate myself as well, I used to get into these debates with my uncle, and he's like, you don't have a choice. It's all predetermined, meaning the concept of God knows what's going to happen to you. And if he knows, then that means it's already predetermined. And I used to argue, well, it was hard to come with the counter argument, because it's like, well, no, we don't know. So we're still choosing. If you don't know, the knowing is on God. You're the one that's making the choice, which is, again, it's hard to explain. But what I like to do is, again, I like to use imagery, because I'm a very artsy, creative person. Draw a circle and then put a dot in the middle of that circle, right? Mentally draw a circle or sphere, whatever you want to call it, and then put a dot in the middle of that circle. The sphere represents all that there is, right? And that sphere represents, you can say that line itself represents non-space, non-time.
Oneness.
Unity. It's all that there is.
Okay.
So now you have a dot, right? Now draw another circle inside of the bigger circle, but around that dot.
Right on.
That dot is the illusionary construct that we call space and time.
Okay.
Right? Now, excuse me, I said that dot, that smaller circle, and you still have the dot in the center of that smaller circle. Now draw a line, horizontal and vertical, that intersects that dot. So you have so what you should see in your mind is a big circle, a smaller circle, and a cross in the middle of it. And at the cross, it's you, or that dot. Now, again, that cross, that circle in the cross, that cross in the circle represents space and time. Outside of that is non-space and time. So the line going across represents movement, and the line going up and down represents the space. So movement is determined by, we just determine time by a construct of moving from this point to that point. And we say it took X, Y, and Z amount of time to get there.
Linear.
Right, linear.
Okay.
And then this encompassing circle and the vertical line represents the space that the space that you're covering, so on and so forth, as above, so below. So anywhere you move in that circle, that dot moves in that circle with that, amongst that cross, it's space and time.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to choose where you're going to go. But to the circle, or the bigger circle, looking inward, it's already happened. It's happening. and it's all happening right now.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So when somebody says, well, God knows what you're going to do before you do it, right? Because it's already happened for God. It's happening, and it will happen all in the same moment. So it's all right now.
Right.
But for the individual that's in that illusionary space and time, they're on a conscious level, not subconscious, not super subconscious. They're making decisions.
Right.
So they don't know. They're in the moment making these decisions. But to that greater aspect of themselves, it already knows what's going on. It already knows what's going to happen. And that's not even including what we call a multiverse.
Right.
So I'm gonna quantify that thought just a little
Quantify
bit.
it, please.
Right. So whenever we do something, anything
Mm-hmm.
with our consciousness, with our thoughts, what we do is we develop an energy pattern,
Yes.
right? And this energy pattern, it resonates with the physical body,
Yes.
and the energetic field within the physical body and outside of the physical body.
Yes.
Right? Now, it's two planes with that. In the divine plane, right? This is all one event
Yes.
happening simultaneously.
Yes.
In the spiritual plane, it's playing out in steps in what we call decision making.
And when you say spiritual plane, that's even different emanations.
That's even different emanations.
Right.
And that's going to be based on a level of consciousness
Yes.
pertaining to the individual.
Yes.
Right.
Some of us are not coherent in decision making. We're primed to do things.
Go over coherence and primed again.
Yeah.
Okay, so like when you're coherent, you are in a space of awareness where you recognize what's taking place.
Right.
When you're primed to do a certain thing, right? It's no different than when you go to the doctor and they take that little triangle thing and they hit your knee, and it just
kicks.
it just
reflex.
reacts,
Right.
right?
If it's in order.
If it's in order. Some of us, through the development of an energetic pattern, we've become primed to respond to certain stimuli.
Right.
Not necessarily are we, what's the word? Coherent during the process.
Right.
So going back to that whole concept of the circle, right? In the circle, the oneness, the unity, the is what it is, it's one event.
Right.
And then from that emanates all the fractions of what that, all the fractions that can express that oneness.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good way of
Yes.
that's one dimension of explaining it. Yes, I can get with that. And in that, then you have these I don't want to call them debates, but difference of opinion. Like, no, I didn't choose this for myself. And that's where when people, from my perspective, get into that state, they really have disconnected themselves from what you say coherence,
Coherency,
because
yes.
they are devoid of the concept or the idea or the knowing that they made choices to get them to that point.
Right.
And
That's called, for the listeners, that's called the reactive mind,
the reactive mind.
right? In the reactive mind is the priming effect.
Interesting.
Or what you've been taught, or how you were taught to expound on something or react to something.
Absolutely. So, in the reactive mind concept is the idea of, no, I did not choose this for myself.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That is on some plane of existence, experience, or consciousness, right?
Right.
Is that set of stimuli available for those who resonate there.
Right. And it's tough because I several years ago I expressed that thought, and the person was like, "Well, so what you saying? A child that has no they don't know right, they don't know wrong, and somebody molests them or touches that child or do something to that child. You say on some level that child is attracting that or wants that to happen?" And like I said, is a couple of years ago, so it's hard to articulate myself. And what I say to that is, it's like, listen, you can believe, articulate it however you want to make it make sense to you.
Right.
And for me, I say again, on some level of consciousness, that experience is drawn to the individual for a greater purpose.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
That-
Because we don't think about, a lot of times when things happen, we're looking at a soul that's right at that present point in time as a child, as an innocence. And I'm not saying they're not innocent. I'm not saying that they are.
Right.
Because I do believe in reincarnation and things carrying over to other lives. Not saying that that's what anybody wants to draw for themselves, but I don't know at the same time. What I'm saying is, it's a sequence of events, causes and effects that happen that culminate to a certain experience that touches, we're looking at the one individual, but it actually touches many, many more individuals than the victim and the perpetrator.
Right.
And it touches everybody that's connected to it on some different level.
Right. Hence the reason why you might have certain laws against that type of behavior.
Right.
Right.
Right. Or you know, there might be an advancement in culture, so to speak, that shapes itself in such a way, let's say, to protect individuals from experiences like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's several different fractions, if you will, that arise as a result of that isolated incident.
Right.
And if I'm understanding you correctly, the focus isn't on whether, you know, the wrongness or the inverse of the incident, right? It's expanding the idea to something larger in full context of the scenario.
Right.
Because what we deal with is very redacted and we see it from a very limited point of view.
Yes.
Exactly. Because you don't know. You really don't know what's wrong or right. You just know what's wrong or right here. You don't know why this person had to deal with that at all, or why did they even chose to deal with that
When you say here, what do you mean? You mean like in the physical?
in the physical realm.
Right.
Because we can always say something is wrong
Right.
in a community. We can start our own community and say, no, this wrong, but it can
Make
be
up our
accepted
rules.
to whoever, you know, outside of us.
Right.
They would say, no, that's right.
Right.
And you know what? A mass quantity of people, we only perceive things from the sensory complex. A lot of us don't deal with the chakras, the energetic meridians, or the acupuncture points, you know what I mean, that reside in what they would probably call as the parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. Which is scientifically proven.
There's science
Come on.
for all the science group. There's stuff that supports the terms that we throw out there.
Right.
Right. And again, we'll get to this a little bit later, right? But this takes me to another point where, you know, we lack coherency because we don't fully perceive ourselves.
And that's the point. It's easy to point the blame outward to something because again, we're using fully our intellect.
Right.
Right? So situations we're saying, well, factually it's this. We're using our seeing, our smelling, hearing, tasting, feeling, and we're using these limited senses to interpret the situations and circumstances that's happen all around us.
Right. So, taking that, what we've said so far, right? Where does this land us on the spectrum of suffering? So we said it's a choice.
It's a choice.
Right.
So now what?
Choose not to suffer. It's easier said than done.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, you have Hindu concepts or Hindu ideas, Buddhists. You have Christian ideas. Right. Even in Hebrew or Jewish communities, you have certain ideas about how to balance your mental.
Okay.
And I think it's a culmination of all. All doesn't have the complete truth, but they all have a distortion or a part of the truth.
Okay.
So it goes back to me, to knowing thyself.
Right.
Knowing that when you came, I'm not going to say you were a blank slate, but you were a slate that was you just were. We'll say that you just were. And your first immediate stimuli of information, knowledge, and feel emotions was your mother. And from the inception of you being in the womb till you came out of the womb. So you're first stimulated by her emotions, her feelings, and so on and so forth, right? Then you're born into this world. Now, if your father's in the picture, your mother, your grandmother, your grandfathers, your friends, your siblings, this is cultural impact, familiar impact, and cultural impact. It starts shaping the way you see things and experience things. Again, concepts of right and wrong. Right. And even in those concepts of right and wrong, it's things that our family and friends tell us that if you ever read the book, The Four Agreements,
yes,
that you actually on a conscious level, or I should say subconscious or unconscious level, you start making agreements with yourself. So if you, I don't know, you play with your toys and you don't clean them up, you don't pick them up accordingly to whatever your family says. It's like, well, you didn't, you need to put your toys away. And the stern talking to, it impacts you. And okay, I must have did something bad or something wrong.
Right.
But let's say you put your toys away and everything. Oh, you cleaned up, good boy. Or that you such a, he's so good, and you get these rewards and these things for things that you do. It starts shaping your perception of what's good and what's bad.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you get awards in school, or you're a good student, you're very smart, you're very intelligent. People start telling you these things. It starts shaping your mind for, okay, this is good. Right. If you get a B minus, shoot, you might get an A minus, and you might have a hard tiger mom or something, and she's coming at you like, we accept nothing less than an A plus.
Right.
It shapes your mind. I'm not good enough.
Right.
So all these agreements and choices that we're making to create the persona or the personality which is a creation, you created that. You are not your personality. It's who you've chosen to be.
Right.
Up to this point in your life. So the same way you can choose to be this person, to choose to like this or dislike that, to choose to ruminate on things that has happened in the past and bring them in the present. Ruminate.
No, you good. I'm framing my next.
Right. You're thinking. A lot of us are not even present to handle situations.
Right.
We're reactive. So we're looking at things that's happened in the past, right? And we're experiencing certain things, and we're just replaying how we reacted back then.
Now, so since you said that,
right?
Oh, well,
No, go ahead.
Since you said that, how do you associate patterns with suffering? First question.
It's okay.
Hold tight. Because I got to back up to the book
Okay.
that he mentioned. Do you know? Say the book again. Do you know the author of that book?
John.
Well, we'll just throw stuff out.
Okay.
They don't get the.
I think it's John Miguel Ruiz. I'll look up the name.
Oh yeah. Ruel. No.
Ruiz.
Yeah, Ruiz.
So,
For the Four Agreements.
yeah, for the Four Agreements. I just want to make everything clear.
No,
so
it's
we don't
it's
just
Don
throw stuff.
Miguel Ruiz.
Don.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know his sons and it's a family thing.
Yeah, so,
Good book. Great book.
It's a good book.
yeah. Go read it. Do something.
Thanks for that,
If you
okay.
just wanna
Yes,
listen
we'll
to
try to throw out the author and the name of these books
Right,
as we
because
speak.
we don't
on.
want you to go past certain things that we understand and that we've come across and how we get our understanding. So we want to, if we bringing books out, we're going to give you the
Yes.
author and things like that also. So you can go out there and you can go see it for yourself. But like you say at the beginning of the podcast, don't believe nothing we say.
And you know what? One more other point on the book, right? When it gets in and it starts talking about the agreements that, the Four Agreements, understand that those are sentiments that you also build into your energetic pattern,
Yes.
your energetic core blueprint.
And for another word for that could be your aura.
Your aura.
Your auric
right.
feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I just want to touch on it. Go ahead.
all good. So you said a lot of us are not present, Zach, and you said that we ruminate or we focus on things from the past, and then we'll bring them forward to the now
Energetically.
energetically.
Yes.
So the question I have for you then is, are patterns associated with suffering?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say too. I would say that too.
Okay.
Yes.
Of course.
It's give me a second to get my thoughts together.
Yes.
Yes, because what you're doing, right? A lot of people, they go into situations and circumstances, they have experiences, and no one's ever, especially in the African American community, and I'm sure it's in all communities, but I'm only speaking based on what people consider African American. We don't take time to heal.
What?
We don't take time to heal from situations and circumstances, or in the catchphrase is from trauma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And everything's not trauma. You know, it's just things that happen and you can move on. But
Exactly.
I'm talking about things that impact you psychologically, that, let's say a relationship, and you go from this relationship and you're like, okay, I've moved on past this person or whatever the case may be, but you still haven't really taken that time, that pause moment to look at yourself. It's not about the person,
Right.
because I have to use what I did. You have to take that person and all the things that you feel like, I don't deserve this or whatever, and take that and put it off to the side and put it in a box for a while, and just deal with you and look at the things that you did.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And you look and say, well, was I X, Y? This is what they said about me. Did I do this?
Right.
And really go into yourself and just start breaking yourself down. Like, man, I'm using an example of me. Dang, I did used to drink a lot.
Right.
You know, I always try to go out on the weekends. I mean, that kind of kept me from, because what's a woman's nature? A woman wants to be with her man.
Yeah.
A woman wants to support her man.
Right.
A woman wants her man to be up under her. Maybe not all women, but their nature is to be present with their man. And what's a man's nature? Not all men. I need to go be with my boys. I want to go hang out with my friends. You know, I don't always want to be up under my girl. She need to go do something with her friends. So when you start looking at these things, and it's like, man, like, okay, I could accept that maybe, and this is just being gentle. Maybe I was going out too much.
Okay.
Maybe I was drinking a little excessively.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe I wasn't spending quality time the way I could have spent quality time. And you just keep asking yourself questions and breaking yourself down. When we separated, is that really considered cheating if I go deal with somebody else? Because they consider it cheating. We don't consider that cheating. We consider it a break. So
That's interesting.
as you analyze yourself and the things that you may have done to impact a good or possibly potentially beautiful relationship, you start letting that person off the hook on some level and start focusing on you. And in doing these things, that self-reflection and breaking yourself down to the quick. As they say, break it. I ain't gonna say the white meat, to the quick. When you break yourself down like that, it's like, yo, like maybe not all, depending on that person, maybe some of the things that they did to me is reactionary from me.
So
Hold on, real quick. So did I really ask for that experience?
Right.
Because that experience, did I really do things that was cause? Did I do things that generated a response, a reaction to me? And even though I may think I didn't deserve certain things, it's exactly what I needed to make me stronger and better, to even go into that place of analyzation,
okay.
to come out on the other end a better man, woman, whatever the situation may be.
Right.
And when you do that, when you get to another situation, I stop there because you had something on your mind. I stop right there. I try to remember.
Are those emanations demonstrations of patterns?
What do you mean?
So you said, did I do this?
Right.
Did I speak this way?
Yes.
Did I act?
And this is how you'll know if you don't do the analyzation.
Let's define relationship.
Okay.
Okay.
All
That's
right.
a good one. I don't.
So relationship. It's the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being.
We're all, so by definition, every human being, every tree, every animal, every rock, everything that you experience, that you see, you're in some type of relationship with it.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna take that a step further.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna kind of go above the material expression
okay.
of a relationship, because we have relationships with everything.
Yes.
Right. You got we have relationships with people. Mm-hmm. You have relationships with animals. Mm-hmm. You have relationships with finances. Mm-hmm. You have relationships with material things.
Yes.
Right. You even have conscious relationships.
Yes. When you say it's conscious, what do you mean?
So when I say conscious relationships, right, these are the elements of experience that we may not be coherent in them, right? But conscious relationships are those demonstrations of experience in which you deal with people of the same mental fortitude.
Got it.
Conscious relationships.
Okay.
So I put it to you like this, right? If the overarching umbrella is patterns, go ahead, get it out.
I just want to say shout out to the Brooklyn Bayesian, Cyrus. She's watching. Twan's in the building. He's sitting off to the side as a guest member. It's an old friend from back in our recruiting days. It's good to see you watching, sis. Continue, brother.
Got you. And also keep healing in the back of your mind, because we're gonna hit on that a little bit. Because there's a lot of talk about healing.
Right, and nobody's healing.
But healing is just the first stage of the process.
Right.
Okay.
That's
the
the
continuation.
There's elements that build upon that, and we're gonna get to that here in a few minutes.
Okay.
All right. So relationships, you got relationships with everything, but if you don't understand the patterns that occur within these relationships, right, you'll miss out on some very, very key fundamentals that are necessary for your development in this space of awareness.
Right.
So as you were saying, I might have did this, I might have did that, right? Go back to the point of origin before that relationship became a relationship.
Right.
Okay. Look at what your frame of consciousness was, and look at the other frame of consciousness.
Come on.
Exactly.
Right. There's instances where they align, and then there's instances where they're not.
But you try to make them fit.
You do. Right. But I'm gonna take something that we really can all vibe on.
Okay.
When a man and a woman come together in a space of consciousness, right? Whether they aligned or not, and let's say they deal with each other physically, they open a gate.
Yes.
Right.
And when they open a gate, a soul emanates from that space of consciousness.
Right.
And it's going to play out in that frame of whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that
was, it's going to play out like that.
Right.
boy.
So, but like you said, right? If you don't take the time to deal with self,
Right.
right?
Come on.
You gonna get those remnants of those patterns in that
seed.
in whatever that is.
And the seed doesn't necessarily mean a physical seed.
No.
Surely
It
don't.
could be a situation or a circumstance that you two create that now you gotta
deal
you,
with it.
meaning you and her, or you or her, are gonna have to deal with.
Right.
Exactly.
According to your consciousness.
According to your consciousness.
Right. Exactly. And that's
So
when
go ahead.
that's when you was talking about your situation on you looking at yourself.
Right.
I would say guarantee you need to look at yourself and look at those intimate problems that you may have. But what you also need to look at is their problem and why was you attracted to that?
I wouldn't even say you got to look at their problem. I think that we got there's a hyper sensitive pushing, if you will, to stay focused on somebody else's problem.
Yes.
No, I'm not saying.
Let me finish the thought. Go
Okay,
ahead, finish your
okay,
thought.
okay,
Finish your
okay.
thoughts, okay?
I'm not
Finish your thoughts, okay?
I'm not saying blame them.
Right.
No, you need to look at what that problem is and find it within yourself.
I got you.
Got it.
I got
The
you.
mirror. The mirror.
The mirror.
Got it.
You have to check that because the patterns is inside you somewhere.
Right.
With that pattern, they need to do this.
So pretty much you attract what you are.
You do. You don't get what you want. You get what you are.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
And guess what? You'll keep getting what you are. They might come out as babies. They might come out as situations. They might come out as whatever you can think of is how it's gonna come out.
My brother in the house is moaning, so let's quantify. Let's quantify what you mean, and it's really a law of attraction type of thing, right?
What you want me to quantify? Or was you about to quantify?
I was going to try to quantify it because I mean it may not even go with what somebody how. So the way the law of attraction, people say, okay, first and foremost, this is what people think: opposites attract, and it's a paradox because what seemingly is an opposite is actually not.
Exactly.
It's something of a like vibration is attracting something from a like vibration. So in situations, let's say, go ahead. Wait.
So in even in physics, right?
Okay.
You got gravity and you got levity.
Oh, explain.
Just hang on to that.
Hang on. Go ahead.
I'm just what you said reminded me of that concept.
Okay.
Right. Gravity is. I don't want to get into that. That's going to detract.
But go ahead.
Whole other thing. But just
look it up.
Look it up. Just pay attention to what he's saying. Look up gravity, but people don't talk about levity.
Okay. So I'm going to use an example of a wealthy man attracting a non-wealthy woman.
Okay.
Or
go with that one.
Okay.
Go.
A wealthy man attracting a wealthy man. He's an accomplished man, right? He's done things. He's worked hard and so on and so forth. But for some reason, he's attracted to in the construct of physicality, someone who is less off than him.
And I'm gonna tell you, I've been listening to this stuff all week, and you know what the woman or somebody would say?
What's that?
He's trying to build her up.
No. But
that's what they say.
No.
You're right. Let me keep going because we're on the same place. That wealthy man, he's not necessarily looking for a woman. We say we're looking for someone that's on the same level. A lot of times we say we're looking for a woman that's on the same level, but in reality, the functionality is you're looking for someone that you can bring up to your level, or you see potential.
But check
how many men that's watching this see potential? She got potential.
But check this out: the wealthy man. That is a fraction of the man.
Right.
We're not talking about his emotional state.
Right.
So materially, she may not be the same way as him.
Right.
Emotionally, she may be right aligned with where he's at.
There you go. So now in the so it play nothing is what it's everything is. Well, hold on. Let me get my saying together.
Slow down now.
Okay, Archangel Michael, please slow down my thinking.
Oh boy.
Nothing is as it seems, but everything you say it is. Meaning, a lot of times things play out in the physical realm that it gives us the opportunity to label it. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But on the soul level, it's something else going on that you don't know. You don't know what it is. It's not what it seems. So it's going to be what you say it is. You're going to say, oh, well, I'm bringing her up and I see potential in her. But what's really happening, that's your label. But what's really happening, you have a soul agreement with this person to say, you're going to be in a place I'm going to give you maybe trouble. I'm going to give you a hard time. I'm going to be everything that you're not to develop you on some level that you lack in. And vice versa.
100.
Or vice versa. You may be bringing something to that other individual, whether you see it or not. You're bringing something to that other individual and they're learning stuff from you.
Now,
go ahead.
You can either be coherent with that or you can be completely detached from that.
It. Yes.
Right? So what I'll say is this: whenever we don't understand the pattern of something, right, we lose the ability to co-create with it and we become victims of the experience.
Well, we choose to become a victim.
Yes.
Right.
Because we're not there. We're not in that space of awareness. You understand what I'm saying? So like kind of like we touched on it. I think we touched on it last week, right? Not every relationship is meant to be a physical relationship.
Right.
We talked. Yeah, we did talk. We touched on it, but me and you had a conversation about it.
We did.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not always gonna be a lifetime relationship.
No.
And that's where you get into the sentiments about love and freedom.
Right.
Right.
Choice.
Right.
Free will.
Right.
So on and so forth.
Loving you from a distance.
And do I have time to quantify contracts?
You got time, bro.
Okay, so let me explain contracts and agreements, right? And this is for some of you, it's going to be a belief thing or understanding thing, or if it don't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Before we come here, we pattern or plan our path of life in a incarnation, right? And the free will is that you get to choose certain things. You get to deviate from that lesson or that plan that you have. But at the same time, it's certain, I say wickets, meaning checkpoints that you have to hit along the way. Right. So if you look at a long path, a mile long path or a tunnel, you can run down the tunnel. You can skip down the tunnel. You could choose to just give up in the middle of the tunnel. Right. You could do so many different things, but you're going down that tunnel. It's just a matter if you're going to go to the very end or somewhere in between you're going to give up. And the thing is that, let's say your soul may choose to learn compassion, right? It's also understand that everybody else has free will as well.
Yes.
So you may come into a family that at one point, part of the plan was for them to be wealthy, but they made decisions by the time you got there, they weren't wealthy. But you still have lessons. It's not that you're not going to, the plans change. You're going to still learn lessons based on your choices, based on the things that you choose to do and don't choose to do. And ultimately what happens is, what you said, we meet people that the plan was to meet them at a certain point and help them. Right. And some of us, because we fall into carnality, we think help is, I like her, she like me. I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to sleep with this person. I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to do something with this person.
Right.
And you connect a certain type of bond and you alter the agreement. So sometimes you stay in a situation that at some point that you were only supposed to be there for a brief moment, but now it's a 2-year commitment, a 3-year, a 10-year, whatever. And things also could result from that. You change the pattern, but you still are learning something. Right. You understand? I got a lot of goosebumps are hitting me. But I just wanted to say that we all have contracts with everybody that you meet directly and indirectly. Right. Everything is connected. Everything is one. Continue, though.
No, I think Twan wanted to say something.
Turn the mic. Talking to the mic, Twan. Talking to the mic. Talking to the mic. You can come sit here if you want to.
Yeah. Jump on in, brother.
Now, microphone check 1 2 1 2.
You good?
Sitting back and just listen to you brothers, articulate your points, on a different wavelength. I vibrate differently than all three of you guys. What I would say is you're right. There are contracts.
Talking to the mic.
I'm sorry. There are contracts that you make with people, and within your process of life, there are contracts, there are agreements, there are choices. Right? Mm-hmm. Life is about choices. My vibration is not the choices that you need to be concerned about. It's the consequences of the choices. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's where the suffering comes in. Yeah. Because when you make a choice, you can make the choice freely, but that choice vibrates not only from you, but also vibrates to the people around you and the people in your orbit. So those consequences is what you have to deal with, right? Because those consequences is the reverberation of your choice. So how can I put this simplistically? Take a pebble, throw it in the water. What happens?
It's ripples.
You got an impact point, rock hits it, the rock is gone now, right? That's the choice. You threw the rock in the water. Now, what's come from that entry point into the water is reverberation of the wave that you now made. That wave, not only is it going outward, it's also coming back inward. Mm-hmm. So if you're standing in the water, sooner or later that wave is going to hit you.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with the impact of that wave.
Right.
So with your choices, understand this. Be careful what kind of size rock you throw. Some waves you can deal with. Some waves knock you over.
Right.
Some waves drown you. Some waves put you in peril. Some waves put you underwater. But you have to deal with it. B4L, Tony, told me something a long time ago when we was on Ross.
Yes.
And he said, he told me something that and still sticks with me to this day. He said, young brother, you got 3 phases in life. You either in a storm, going into a storm. Either you going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you coming out of the storm. But you're never in one phase too long. He said, what you got to understand is understanding what phase you're in, right? Not to get out of the phase, but prepare for the next phase, because it's not going to be there forever. And that's one of the things that I take with me as I go through. It's like, okay, yo, hardship's going to come, choices, suffering, consequences is going to come there. But when you hit the consequences, okay, what phase am I in right now? What did I do? Going back to your choices and your contracts. What contract did I make? Okay, I made this contract. I made that choice. Okay, cool. This is my verification from that, right? Or, hey, I was in that circle. I was in that orbit. This happened. I got hit with that wave. Okay, cool. Right? So now, now you have a choice in front of you. Okay?
Right.
So with that choice is, okay, do I could either A, hold on, right? I could brace for shock. I could take this wave. I could get out the way, right? And with anything with the relationships, that's what happens. Speaking of the dynamic of people, your relationships that you have with people and how you deal with people is a direct reflection of, back to your point of your contracts and how you vibrate. It's with the upbringing. Okay, listen, I was raised a certain way. Those lessons, those patterns, those behavioral traits, those generational triggers, those generational traumas, curses, hardships, whatever you want to call them, those shape you.
Right.
Where I vibrate is, there comes a point in time where you gain consciousness and you understand and you start seeing your contracts, and you have to make a choice. Like, okay, I can either continue to go down this path, right? Right? Or in my terminology, I could throw a stone and continue to throw those stones and just deal with it. Or I could say, you know what? Throwing that stone doesn't do me any favors. It doesn't help my situation. It doesn't help this situation. It actually continues my trauma, right? Or it continues my suffering. Let me don't throw that stone. Let me take these stones, put it in my pocket real quick. Let me deal with me, right?
Right.
And with your comment about the relationship, about dealing with yourself, again, understanding how I vibrate is okay. Yeah, I get it. I have to deal with me. So for me, it's and I've been through a ton of stuff. He knows a lot of stuff that I've been through in my life. The first thing I always tell people is this, and the first thing I always tell myself is, I forgive me.
Yeah. That's the beginning of healing.
I forgive me. For me to forgive, I don't even, if you did me wrong, I don't have to forgive you. You know what you did. I forgive me. And once I forgive me, I let it go. Doesn't mean I'm going to move with you the same way.
Right.
Doesn't mean I'm going to move with you the same way.
Right.
Doesn't mean that me and you going to be back in that we're going to have that same contract. Our relationship is going to change. But for me, I do the work because I forgive me. Because I made a choice, right? Or I invested in you or whatever to have you in my orbit. So with that forgiveness, when I forgive myself, that means I let it go, right? I just make a data point. I said, okay, cool, got it. Choice, consequences, you get it, move forward.
Spirit got something to say. It's not I disagree with you. It's I'm just going to throw a perspective out there. Once you forgive yourself, right? And I don't like using the word true healing or whatever the case may be. It's some people, y'all bear with me. Thoughts. For somebody to do something to somebody else, right? To even do it is a indicator that they're not conscious. For me to harm you is an indicator that I'm not conscious. Because once I truly know myself, I truly know who you are.
Right.
So I could never harm you
Facts.
because
Right.
you are me and I am you.
Right.
So for me to what we would say, do you any type of way, that means I'm in a deep sleep.
Right.
And forgiving yourself is forgiving the other person. Because you, if the person has awaken to consciousness of who they are,
Right.
and I'm using the word truly, then they have no other choice but to forgive the other person, because they know that that person is them, but that person is deeply asleep. So it's a saying, once you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And once the way you change the way you look at people, the people you look at change. It's not for you to go after them or chase them or do none of that. I'm not saying that. But what happens is it brings you at a whole nother level of vibration, because if one cannot truly forgive a person, they're actually holding on to the contract.
Right.
You've taken that contract and said, you know what, I ain't gonna deal with it in this lifetime, but you know, I'm willing to it. I know it sounds crazy, but if non-forgiveness is really you agreeing to deal with them again.
Right. And you're gonna have
Okay,
to. And
so,
you're gonna have to agree with. I mean, you're gonna have to deal with them again, because if you don't square this up in this lifetime, the next lifetime y'all have together is gonna come right back up, because y'all already signed agreement. Well, we ain't do this right.
I got to
brother.
learn this lesson
We
till
got to
I
learn
have
this
no
lesson.
connections or attachments in any type of way of good,
Right.
bad, or indifference. We know who we are.
Right. Okay. So let me say, and this is where I push back on that.
Go ahead.
I agree. I agree to your point of to truly forgive somebody is also forgiving for you forgiving yourself. You have to forgive them.
I didn't
Right?
say you have to.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't say you have to.
Okay. What did you say?
I'm saying that when you truly, maybe I did say have to, but when you get to that point of forgiveness and you forgive yourself and you realize who you are, it's like you have no choice but to forgive the other person.
Right.
Because
Okay,
you
so-
know that they're asleep.
Right. So with that understanding,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that hey, they sleep, they don't really see it. When I say I forgive me 1st, right? My point of forgiving me is saying, okay, I see what's happening.
Okay.
I see that you're not awake. I see that you don't know, right? It comes to a point where for you to engage, it takes two parties. So if I forgive you and I say, you know what? I understand the contracts we have with each other, right? I also know this contract it's demonstrative or damaging, in its entirety. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break the contract, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna break
Which
the
you can break.
contract,
Which you can break.
right? Which you can break, and then once I break the contract, now it's an aspect of me saying I'm not going to hold you accountable, right? For your part of the contract to me. I'm not gonna say, well, you owe me or we had a contract. You see what I'm saying? I'm not gonna hold you. I'm just saying, hey, I got it. But with that, it's also by me saying that, I understand that you're not at the point or the stage where we can have that dialogue or you have that awareness. So for me to be able to break the contract and keep the contract and redo it, or to what I like to say pivot, once I pivot, the pivot is, hey, I got it, I understand, but we can no longer vibrate or cohabitate or deal or move how we moved before. We now have to change it. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So break it down in layman's terms. You got people you show love to. You got people that, let's use Baton. I'm not gonna put no names.
Right.
Right? Nothing but love. Right? You got people you came up with, you got nothing but love for them. So they do something that violates your code. Right? Or they do something that doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean that I hate you. It just means that based on how we move together, you showed me or you did something in the aspect showed me that the level or how I viewed you is not how you move, who you truly are. So now I have to say, okay, out of one or two things. One, I have to change the contract. I have to distance myself. And two, if you value what we have, before we can even move forward, there has to be a conversation. And it has to be an open conversation to the point like, yo, hey, look, you did X, Y, and Z. You don't have to say sorry. I'm not looking for a sorry. I'm looking for acknowledgement of
What you done?
not what you did, acknowledgement of yo, it happened.
It happened.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because if you because being sorry, I don't want to hear that. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm thinking like because you made a choice, right? Got a piece of paper real quick. I got this gum in my mouth. I'm gonna hold it.
Go ahead, keep talking.
So what I'm saying is this, like, so that's what thing. So breaking down to another way is this: you in a relationship with a young lady,
Okay.
right? And you in a committed relationship, whatever you want to call it. You go, you working, whatever. She goes out with her girls, or she goes out here. She's just somewhere, y'all down together. She comes back and she says, 2-3 weeks later, whatever, she starts moving funny. Then you say, hey, what's going on? I'm noticing you moving kind of whatever. And she said, hey, I got to tell you something. The other day when I went out, I did whatever with whatever, da. You know what I'm saying?
Got you.
You know what I mean? Some people would say, and this may be an unpopular opinion. Some people say, well, things happen. I'm not of that mindset. Here's why. Back to choices. From the time you decided to go out, or the time you got yourself in that space, there is a plenitude of data points that if you made one different choice, that would not have been the outcome. But you had to do so many things wrong, or you had to make so many choices, right? In that in that whole paradigm to get that outcome that you can't sit there and tell me it was a mistake. And you can't tell me you're sorry because it was a choice. So you made a choice.
Right.
So with that choice, I understand it.
Right.
But now I have a choice. And my choice
Exactly.
is I'm gonna get out the way.
Right. Which could end up being, if that's your point of view, right?
Right.
It could be that this person over here having this same issue that you had, he probably end up handling it a little
different
better.
way.
He may say, you know what, don't worry about it, we good, because we understand the contract.
We understand the contract.
So if we understand that, okay, we already made a contract here together for this, now we got to figure out what are we supposed to learn from this situation.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
That's so. I want to funnel this back to the lane of suffering, right?
Right.
Because all of these are core attributes that contribute to that particular space of awareness.
Right.
Right. But as we discuss this topic, right, when we recognize such sentiments, right, we also at the same time implore that we're in a space of awareness where we are aligned with the concept of allowance.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that to what my Ak was saying earlier, right? And I think what's kind of pervasive in the conversation is relationships between men and women,
Right.
and how men and women do things to each other, right? So you use the one example about, hey, you're talking to somebody, they go out, they make a choice to do something,
Do something.
whatever that is,
Whatever that thing is.
right? On both ends of the spectrum, right? We have to ask ourselves, is there a recognition of three things? What am I supposed to be learning from this?
Mm-hmm.
What practices am I supposed to be aligned with? Right? And how is my consciousness evolving from this circumstance?
Right.
So
Because in that, right? In that, just as much as that person made a choice to do whatever that is, we made a choice to deal with that person.
right. So with that, and this is where my brother said about you choose to suffer, right? And suffering is a choice. It's those choices, it's those small, minute choices. You brought up an example about in the beginning of your day, where you at now. We start at 3:30. Everything you did from the time you woke up to
Right,
now was
right,
a choice.
Right.
Right.
Those are those choices, right?
There is no suffering.
We haven't got there
We
yet.
haven't got to the point that there really is no suffering.
we haven't got there yet.
But the groundwork that we've been laying
I was
is
about to
it's
take it there.
based on your mental
take it there.
construct, familiar, friends, situation, what you've created as your persona. You suffer because of who you say you are.
Right.
And the expected outcomes of situations, the things that you've projected on persons, places, and things.
Right.
And if it doesn't go that way, it's like, well, the control aspect of it, it's called you're choosing again to suffer.
Right, and there is a lack of recognition, and we call those events suffering, right? But
Right.
they are metrics in the whole that cause you to go back
Exactly.
to the original concept of wholeness.
Right.
So, what I would add to that is that I agree with the aspect of there is no suffering, because, and again, the way I vibrate is this. Based on just using the example again, if I allow myself to get in that zone, right? Understand this. I'm inflicting suffering on myself based on my own mental state.
Right.
Right.
But if I say, you know what, I get it, I understand it, we good, right? But now I'm gonna move here. Yo, there's no
thing-
suffering.
Yeah.
It's
I get what you're saying.
see
you're-
what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
get what
like
you're saying.
Go ahead.
Let
go ahead.
me. It's a conscious choice of, yo, I'm not about to put myself into a free spin or into a pattern where I'm now messing with my energy, I'm messing with my psyche, I'm messing with my physical state, right? I'm saying, I get it. We good.
Right.
And I'm going to keep it going this way. See what I'm saying? Now, with the understanding that, hey, we about to adjust this contract. We're going to pivot. I'm going to go this way. You can continue on this path. But I'm going to go ahead, how we say, course correction. I'm just going to, we got that nautical in us. You 180, I'm going to go 179. You feel me? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go, hey, you 180, yo, maintain course of speed. I'm gonna go 179. Because eventually,
There's gonna be some miles between us, yo.
eventually, after about a good mile, you ain't gonna be able to see me. After 10 miles, you're gonna be like, yo, where he went.
Yeah.
Right.
20 miles, you gonna forget about me. At 50 miles, yo, we in a different continent.
Right.
And I'm good with it.
Right.
In the realm of space and time, like that's what I'm doing.
Right.
I just think 1 degree course correction. I'm not gonna suffer because that's a choice.
Right.
Yo, 180, 179. Let's go.
I just want everybody to remember though, you could say that audibly, right?
Right.
And you could even think you mean it. But here's the caveat: you may make that perceived course correction, and then if it has not truly been resolved within you, I ain't talking about them. Somebody else will be sent
Yes.
with the same lesson
Yep.
in a different form or construct, so that you truly get it.
Right.
Right. And that is a consequence of not discerning patterns.
Yes. Exactly.
Right? And when you fail to discern patterns, you reacclimate yourself to suffering.
Right.
Right.
Did you have any other particular things you want to touch on?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Because I was going to share like true story, but go ahead.
In line with that, right? In dealing with this concept, right? So how or what recommendations do you have to develop spiritually, geometrically, rhythmically in this physical yet spiritual experience?
I want you to quantify I know I asked you this before, but quantify for the people because
So
geometrically.
when I say geometrically, you develop through the patterns that you experience.
Okay.
Right? So like if you have to deal with something over and over and over again.
It's a cyclical.
Right. But it's still a pattern.
Right.
Right. So for an example, let's take snowflakes.
Okay.
All snowflakes are crystallized water,
Okay.
but no one snowflake
It's the same.
It's
is the same.
Right.
Right. But they all share the idea or the advent of a pattern.
Right.
You follow
Okay.
what I'm saying?
Each situation has a pattern. Right.
Each situation has
Right.
a pattern.
Right. Right.
Each situation is going to develop according to that space of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not developing consciously on this plane, you know what I'm saying? You going through the cycles.
Okay.
You know, it's like, you know, I'm gonna use the idea of going in the wilderness, if you will, for 40 years,
Okay.
going in circles,
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So, boom.
Read those parts again so I could touch on
Oh,
these
okay, yeah. So how do we develop spiritually,
spiritually,
geometrically,
geometrically,
and rhythmically
rhythm.
in this physical yet spiritual experience?
I like rhythm. I might start with rhythm. You
Go
know,
ahead.
rhythm, which is I forget which hermetic principle it is at the moment, but rhythm is one of them, and it's kind of, to me, once you get closer to neutrality, I don't know if in this plane.
Can you quantify neutrality?
I will.
Okay.
I don't know if in this plane, this 3D moving to 4D, and I'll quantify that some other time. This state of awareness that most people are in. It's going back to the fourth principle, right? The name of the show. It's
Right.
polarity. So you have one line, and on the left, you're extremely, let's say, positive, whatever that is. And then that same line on the other end of it, you have what we consider extremely negative. A lot of people swing to the extremes through life.
Right.
They
Like a pendulum.
when they're not coherent in who they are, what they are, and what they're capable of doing or not doing. Well, it's it's what they're capable of doing. So they constantly swing. We call it peaks and valleys and peaks, right? As you move through life, my stance is one should develop consciously to where the swing is more like this.
Right.
And if I do that hard enough, I can't do it because, you know, a vibrate heart, it almost looks like it's still,
Right.
but it's vibrating. But so it's moving from this to this
So
consciously.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, apparently somebody outwardly may be saying, man, this guy's just he has equanimity.
He's balanced.
He's balanced.
Yeah.
But it's not that he's not going through stuff.
Right.
It's just that his awareness has risen above it to really see, like, okay, it's just situations and circumstances that arise that I can say this is bad, but I could also say it's not really that bad. It just is.
Right.
You move to a place of isness.
Actually, it's love, brother. It's love.
Either
Either way you feel it, it's love.
you move to a place of I call it equanimity. We say shalom,
say shalom.
but I
We
like
say
to call it equanimity. It's balance of mind, balance of being. You just balanced. So it gets hard for me. I'm not saying I'm anything, but certain conversations it's really hard for me to give an opinion because the same way I can give an opinion on it this wise,
Right.
automatically, almost instantly, I have a counter argument for the argument that I have that I'm processing in that same moment.
But that's okay, man. That's just I think that's nothing more than spiritual review. You know what I'm saying? So
Quantify that.
so for an example, right? In law, they got a term that's called judicial review,
Okay.
right? Where they take precedent, right, and they basically they review it for its fluidity to make sure it makes sense, right? And that's to keep a balance of procedure, interpretation of the law, so on and so forth for the purposes of application, right? So if you've, hey, look, you say, you know what? Yeah, certain things, right? I don't give an opinion. I say give the opinion in both lanes.
Got it.
Because if you do that, you have now just provided the person balance.
And choice.
And choice.
Free will. Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's a blessing that that you have gained perception of both sides. Because most people, they either sway to the left
Or they sway to the
or
right.
they sway to the right.
Like
So,
we discussed last week. Hold on. Like we discussed last week about the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
Same same process. Just give them both ends. Now you choose.
You choose.
Choose you this day.
Right.
Is that it?
So to add on to that, what I would say is this, and again, this is just my philosophy and where how I vibrate. So a long time ago, I remember we were sitting down, and you know when we had one of those long mid watches and stuff like that out there, you just and you know what I'm talking about.
I don't remember, but go
Okay,
ahead.
well, no, you don't
I know what you mean by.
But I'm gonna bring up a scenario.
Okay.
You know those long mid watches where there ain't no moonlight, no sunlight, no
Okay.
not sunlight, no moonlight, no starlight. There's nothing.
It's just black out
pitch
there.
black.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you figure out you think you walking with ghosts and all the rest of that, right?
Yeah.
I never experienced that. What I always experienced was light.
Okay.
What I always experienced was I get here. I would go here. So a long time ago, I just sitting there in my thoughts within myself, and I say, "Yo, the number is 2.
Okay.
The prime number is 2." What I mean by that, pretty much, is I'm tied into what you say, my brother. Prime number is 2. So the Most High, you know, whatever you want to call him, you know, whatever you choose to call him, whatever. The prime number in the universe is 2. Because when you look at the universe, there's always 2 things that with the only thing that makes them imbalance is more of the other. And let me explain what I'm talking about. You got night and day, split up 12 hours apiece. Earth, sky, man, woman, so on and so forth. Right? Fire and water. Okay, well, if you have a blazing fire, Canada's on fire right now. There's not enough water to put out that fire. It's an imbalance. Talking back to his swinging, right? But if you have more water than fire, you don't have that, right? So that's the imbalance what I'm talking about. So with that, it's understanding that, I gotta be both fire and water.
Okay.
But I have to watch my percentages of where I go with it.
Right.
I have to be loving, but at the same time I have to be, what was
No, I'm thinking about the Sephira, the tree, the tree of life.
The tree of life.
Right. You see what I'm saying? I have to be those things. I have to know both sides. Right? So one thing, and I don't know if you've heard me say this over the years, to bend or break a rule, you must first know said rule. Right? So for me to be able to understand and know where I'm at and to stay as balanced as I possibly can, I must know the light and I must know the dark. I must have both sides. I must have both perspectives. And based on that, I must weigh those perspectives 3-dimensionally by taking both, because both have positive and negative in it based on your perspective.
Right.
The only thing that comes is where you want to land in that perspective.
Exactly. I agree. I kind of agree with you on the because somebody can say whatever's good for me, or we say good for me, could be bad for
Could be bad,
you.
absolutely bad for me.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, because I'm at that wavelength myself on that thing.
Yeah.
Because when I express things about suffering for people, and most of the time I give it to them real, kind of. I give it to them sometimes.
They may not like the delivery, but the message is on point.
The message is right there.
That's both sides.
And that's how I explain most times when people pass away or die.
Right.
Or somebody get murdered.
Right.
I said, well, I asked these people, was it a good thing?
Right.
They say no.
No.
But I can find a million reasons why I can say yes.
It was a positive income.
You know what I'm saying? But now it comes down to the suffering part. So now we got to figure out, okay, well, why are you suffering? If I just told you a million reasons why it's good, but you gave me one thing why it's bad.
Right.
They're not here anymore.
Right.
That's
which is selfishness.
Attachment.
Right.
which we touched on last week, which could cause suffering.
And I would even say this. Not only is it attachment, right? But I think that it's a lack of well, I don't even say I think. I know that it's a lack of comprehension about what happens when things take place in the realms which you cannot see.
Right. Or do not know.
But you do see them. Right? You do see them because when you go to sleep at night, when you close your eyes, you go there.
Right.
You go.
You know, it's funny. It's funny that you said that, and I'll give you an example of what you just said. Me and my mother was having a conversation the other day. So recently, you know, my family background is, you know, we're Caribbean and so on and so forth. I was, you know, born in the Caribbean, raised in the States, so on and so forth. So recently I've been going back, re-engaging, re-in-touching. So, and I went back, you know, I went back to the Caribbean recently, within the last month or so. And I was standing in a spot and I'm looking at a building. And me looking at the building, I see my grandmother. My grandmother been past a transition for years now.
Right.
But I'm looking at this spot and I see my grandmother. And I see her as if me and you standing there. And the being of it, it was like, wow. You know what I mean? So, and for me, the person I always said that always had their hand on my shoulder is my grandmother. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm in a spot and I'm in a state and I need to go someplace or I need to do something, I always call on her. What should I do? Give me some, I call on my ancestors and said, hey, show me what I need to see. Right? Mm-hmm. Give me, you know, not do it for me. Let me tap into your knowledge. Let me tap into your foresight. Let me tap into you and show me. And the one person that always comes, right, that I can recognize, and there's a reason why I say it that way, is always her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I can tell you there's been times in my life where I've gone someplace and I'm about to do something and I see her standing there and she's giving me that look like, nah.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, okay, I ain't gonna do that.
Right.
And then it turns out, it was like, yeah, and then, you know, it's like, oh, damn, I shouldn't have did that. Like, okay, yeah, you got me. Got it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that's an example of that as far as being able to capture that part.
Right.
Okay.
Which can always come back to reconditioning the mind, like we were saying. You were saying earlier about people being reconditioned to think this way, but that's a situation that can start repenting the mind. So you could say, "Oh no, when I see grandma, I know this, and she looking this way. I know, yo, this is not the way for me."
Yeah, that's not the move. That's not the move. That's not the vibe right now.
Go ahead.
Can I say something?
Keep us on track, Malak.
No. It's so for everybody who's listening, right? It may sound like there is an amalgamation of thoughts. You understand what I'm saying? And I would like for everybody to consider this point. The elements that we're discussing and that we're bringing forth, they stem from the whole, right? But it just so happens the wholeness of the one expression is fractalized through different expressions.
Right.
That doesn't make it wrong or less credible or, you know, or anything like that. We are putting the pieces back together.
Right.
So, you know, something that I was thinking about today, right? Even if I take the Bible, the Tanakh, the Quran, or any other, I'm going to say religious text, right? Chapter and verse is a redaction of the complete expression of the idea.
Quantify that.
What I'm saying is that you get a sentence, you get a line that says, well, you know what? This happened in this day, or you shall not do this. Right? That is a redaction of the original wholeness of the idea.
Right.
Because that one idea can be said in so many different ways. Right. And if I take the human makeup, right? As you were kind of talking about earlier, the circle. Right. Each one of us has chakras. There's medical terms for that. energetic meridians. There's medical terms for that.
Right.
Acupuncture points. There's medical terms for that.
Right.
Those are the, in the divine plane, we still are one,
Right.
Right.
right?
Exactly.
As we come down, there's different expressions of the one, which is light brown, dark brown, yellow bone, red bone, tall, short,
Right.
wide, skinny. You understand?
Right.
Green eyes, blue eyes, all on the same
line.
all in the same circle of wholeness,
Right.
right? And if that record, and if that demonstration plays out in people the way that it does, because we are only expressions of an idea.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're all expressions of an idea. No different than when you open up a gate and you bring forth a child. It is the he or she, that child is the expression of those two ideas that came together
Right.
as one idea.
Right.
How much more so the information that's inscribed in religious texts.
Right.
So I said that to say, like, I know it sounds like we're throwing a lot of different things out there, and we are, right? But we taking pieces of one puzzle and bringing the puzzle back together.
And that's going back to the topic, suffering. It's only one suffering. It's and again, it's human suffering.
Human suffering.
It's human suffering. So it's a collective consciousness that's actually fractalized and are choosing
Yes.
different experiences that we will coin the term suffering. However, that perceived suffering is actually learning.
Learning.
Love.
It's love. It's all love.
Oh.
There is a
Man.
statement that there is no growth without failure.
100%. I dare you to fail.
Matter of fact, I think I just read that this week, brother. I'm
Hey,
serious.
There is,
I was
there
looking
is a
at- I
saying:
was-
there
I
is
was-
no growth, there is no learning,
Right.
without failure.
and I think that's Rumi.
I dare you to fail.
I
Yeah,
dare you to fail.
Right.
Like when you look like
I dare you, brother.
to bring it forward
Yeah.
just outside of the not outside within the context with us being one. Look back in yourself, look inward, and ask yourself, at what point in my life or when did I learn the most?
Yeah. 100% when I failed.
When I failed.
When you
You
assume
take it back.
that
You could
failed.
take it back. I could give you examples. The first time you jumped on a bike.
100.
The first time you jumped off a bike and you scraped your knee.
Yeah.
You learned, right?
Yeah. Not the phone no more.
Yeah.
Not fall no more, right?
Or take take more caution.
Or take more caution, right?
That's the lesson.
You know what I'm saying? That's the lesson. That's the lesson, right? The first time you in school, you took that one test for granted, and you got that F or you got that 0, you got that big mark. You know,
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
The perceived failure
the
caused you to go study hard.
Go study hard, right?
Or you'll repeat it again
Or
Or you repeat it again
until you get it.
until you get it.
'Cause-
But it's still the suffering, the failure it's that feeling.
Right.
It's that energy that you're like, yo, it just don't feel right.
It's the push.
It's
It's
the
the
push.
push.
It's the push to do better.
You see what I'm saying? You will remember more of your failures and your perceived suffering that changes and scopes you than you do your victories.
Because even failure is a victory.
Right?
Exactly.
Failure is a victory, and that's one of my pillars. For me, I try to find a W in every L.
Which goes back to, and I wanna really sink this home, is like we're really speaking paradoxically because there is no suffering.
Right? There isn't.
There is no failure.
It's just a matter of how
It's an illusion.
you process it.
And,
Right.
and you know what? There are, and we can get into the influences of other beings later.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But there are influences that will manipulate your thinking to keep you focused on suffering. To structure your perception in that lane. But when you allow yourself to perceive I'm gonna say beyond yourself. You essentially you get out your way.
Yeah, when you we are back to my brother's point, you know, which is again, ladies and gentlemen, there is no suffering.
Right.
Yep.
Choices. Once you put yourself in that choice, you put yourself in that pattern, you make that contract with yourself. That's where you get yourself.
Right. So
You have to learn how to get out of your own way.
And I'm gonna give you one tool you can take on board to do that. You know, as we get to it.
that's where I was about to go.
Oh, I was
Like-
about to say, I
it's
think it's
like,
okay
yo,
to add something.
Let's go there.
I
Let's
think
go to that place.
we can. I think Zach had. Was it something you was about to bring?
It was something back when Twan was talking about fire and enough water. It's actually in the Kabbalistic tree.
Tree.
And
Oh,
it's,
the
it's,
Sephiroth.
It's the Sephiroth. But this
Yeah,
one
yeah.
is dealing with the pillars.
Okay,
And
yeah.
you have the left pillar, you know, which is severity, and the right pillar is mercy, and the middle pillar is mildness.
Balance. Yeah. Balance.
So it's like a balance in
Balance
between the two.
Between the two.
Yeah.
So it's like dealing with the shadow and dealing with the light.
Right.
right.
And balancing the two, because both are necessary for the other's existence.
Right.
At least in this plane.
Right.
Amen.
And see, when you get to that point, you'll start seeing these things in these teachings and these things that we have.
right.
That's why we have
The yin yang.
The yin yang. That's why we have the menorah.
Right.
The menorah is basically the tree of life, or what we would say the sofa rope, because we have these lamps, but they all connect to the branch,
Right.
to that middle branch, and on to the branch, you still have that middle path, which is
Right.
the path of love, or the heart chakra, which is the path of love, but all of it is connected to it.
Right.
It's all connected to love, no matter how you're gonna break it down or how you move it.
Right.
It's all connected there to that middle light.
It's because love is the highest vibration in connection to the source of all.
Right.
Because love is harmonious,
Right.
and essentially through each relationship, you're learning how to grow harmoniously.
Right. So go ahead and break it
What
down.
you got
I know
for us?
what you
got
Oh,
there,
yeah.
boy?
Yeah. Shout out to Seafood for that one. Yeah. So earlier, you remember we touched on the point about healing,
Yes.
right? And there's a lot of expression about healing. And you know what? That's necessary. But one thing, what I'm gonna add to it is that we have to heal enough to become whole again. That's the first plane, right? And then, you know, as you develop and you become whole, you heal so that you can become coherent, right? And as you become coherent, you know, you gain recognition of certain circumstances. You know how to differentiate, and you know how to you're working towards balance.
right.
And as you become coherent, you incur activation, in which you start activating the latent capabilities within your core energy blueprint, right? So this is a space of awareness where you, let me see what I wrote down here, where you activate energetic powers within yourself
Okay.
Got you.
that essentially you have, right? So, you know, if you take for an example the sentiment, you know, like physician heal thyself, right? There's an adage that says that the doctor dresses the wound, but the Most High heals it,
Heals it. Right.
All right.
right? So you go to the doctor, something happens, right? You break a bone or whatever the case may be, it protrudes out the skin, right? They do their work, right? Did the doctor heal it, right? Or is it the power that you have within yourself that does the healing?
Right.
Watch it now.
Your inherent abilities.
Your inherent abilities, right? So
The next gene,
Say it again.
your mutant X gene. It's
Hey, it's a part of it's
what
it's
it
the
is.
truth. Right.
It's
Right.
what it
Right.
is. Your body's gonna, with that sentiment. Is it you doing the healing? Is the doctor doing the healing? It's you doing the healing.
you're doing it. But what the
Right.
doctor does is the doctor removes the
Facilitates.
blockage.
He facilitates something.
That's all it is.
You know what I'm saying? So there's and even in that, right? We we should attune ourselves to gain the awareness of how we I'm gonna just use a simple term. You got to get out of your way and you have to allow. You know, and like you said, you won't. Well, something you said earlier. You mentioned. Darn it! What did you say? Well, I'm gonna say how I heard it.
Say how you heard it.
In order for you to incur activation, you should not be in conflict with yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you are in a space of awareness where you are trying to implement what we call healing.
Say that part again. You should not be.
You should not be in conflict with yourself. So in other words,
There's something there, but you keep going. I'll let you go.
in other words, we can speak something audibly, right? But we can be far removed from the deep conviction of what we're saying.
Okay.
We say it because it sounds good outwardly, but deep down inside, you doubt.
You don't believe it.
You don't believe it. You don't trust that that's the truth of being.
Right.
Because the truth is there is no suffering.
Right.
Right. The truth is you are whole.
Right.
The body shows you that you are whole.
Right.
Whenever you do something to it,
Right.
you scrape your knee without you saying nothing, the body restores itself.
Exactly.
You break a bone, they remove the blockage, they put a splint on it. You probably not even thinking about it, right? But the body is healing itself. The same holds true for the inverse. Well, I don't know if it's gonna work. It's gonna do whatever you tell it to do.
Right. Because if you don't believe, it ain't gonna happen.
So, when I heard you say you get out of your own way, you both said it, repeated it. It goes back to the meditation, and I'm trying to quantify it real quick. It's like you are not your thoughts.
100.
So if you are not the thoughts, who is the you?
Right.
That's separate from the thoughts, and it's getting that aspect separated from the one that's giving you these random thoughts, that's continuously saying, I don't know, I can't do this. Who is that guy? Right. And who is the one that just knows? Who is the one that's actually what is it, or what is that that's actually doing the healing?
Well, I would say the one that knows is the one that's in that circle.
Right.
That because the one that knows, or that.
Oh, you mean the one that is the circle?
Right. Okay. Right. The one that is the circle is in the space of awareness concerning the truth of being.
Right.
And there's always gentle reminders about the truth of being.
Right.
All the time. If you're willing to allow yourself to attune to that frequency.
Clear the blockages.
Clear the blockages.
Right.
That's if you clear the blockages, that's how you initiate the activation.
All right. So we're going to talk about clearing the blockages.
Clearing the blockages.
All right. Oh, so you want me? Well, I know people heard it. It's kind of like shadow work.
Okay.
Right.
Shadow work. The shadow is not a bad thing. And when we talk about the shadow, people try to, what you see every day for the most part in most people is the presentation.
Right.
The shadow is the stuff that's in the dark, the stuff that's hidden.
Exactly.
The stuff that they may deep down like to do, but they present that they don't do it.
Yeah.
Whatever field that is in your sexual relationships, your outward activities, so on and so forth. And it's like you keep these things maybe from a certain group, your family members or whatever, but you have maybe a shame about it, a disdain towards it, or whatever the case may be. And what happens is the shadow becomes, in some cases, and there's
judgment.
It's self-judgment, but self-judgment carries an energy or a vibration with it. And that vibration, actually, we call that a thought form. It becomes a thought form, or someone would say an entity. And this is just one way of explaining a shadow. This is not the all extensive explanation of a shadow. This is just the one I'm using for this conversation. And that shadow actually becomes an entity that you created. So think of it as a baby, right? But you don't like this baby. You don't care about you want the baby to stay in the closet. So what'll happen is things will happen to where when you have dreams, you might see something chasing you in your dreams. This shadowy figure, this things may happen around your home, like accidents or certain things based on this shame, guilt, whatever the case, whatever terms you want to use on it. It's just, and in relationships, things happen, and it seems like it's pattern. It goes back to the pattern again, right?
Right.
But what I have experienced in dealing with my shadow, like I always, we talk about like, partying and drinking and so on and so forth. It's like, yo, listen, it's coming to terms with the shadow and saying like, oh, that's where I was at that point in my life. I can't go back and change it. What's the point of like hating myself over it when that going through that situation was what developed me to be who I am now? All the different things, good, bad, and indifferent. So as you start dealing with the shadow and saying, man, I love you. I love whatever that version of me was.
Right.
Because if I didn't experience that version of me then, again, I wouldn't even be.
Which goes back to the point where you already laid it out before you came here.
Right.
That's what you was going to do.
Right.
So you could come back.
Right.
To shoot, so you can come back to
the whole.
the whole.
So it's like you are the sum of your experiences.
You are the sum of
You
your.
are.
How can you not be?
And it's with that, we like to perceive and think that we are objective in nature, but we are subjective people.
Quantify that.
Quantify it means this: it's objectivity would mean that you have to look at it three-dimensionally, but your experience is a subjective experience.
Right. Okay, I got you. Right.
So when speaking to
experiential,
you're
right?
Experiential. So that makes you subjective,
Right.
right? And how so quantify it in the aspect of let me give you an example. Okay, here's what it is. Something. Just follow me on this. Let's say life is let's say in the whole is a building, right? And in that building, we got 30 levels. We got the outside, we got the outside, right? You got a man, so the 30th level will be the highest level, right? You got a man who's outside the door on the sidewalk looking into the building. He's not looking up, he's just looking into the building. Why? Because it's either hot, cold, wet, windy outside. He's exposed to the elements, right? His perspective, his point of view, his subjectivity is that where he's at. Mm-hmm. The man who's inside of the building, first floor, just on the opposite end of the door, he's not dealing with elements. But what he's dealing, he's in the main lobby. He has no comfort. He has no nothing, right? The man who's on the third floor, he's looking at the man on the sidewalk, and he's looking at the people out there, and he's like, man, there's a lot of people out there. The man on the 15th floor, looking over the top, and he's like, okay, yeah, I can see this. I could probably see a couple blocks being out in the ocean, looking at the horizon. Mm-hmm. The man on the 30th floor, right, comes down in the elevator, and the man on the 15th floor, the man on the third floor, the man on the first floor lobby, the man outside looking at this man, and he's dressed in a rain suit with an umbrella, right? And they looking at him, and they're not laughing. 30 minutes later, it starts raining. Why see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. How did the man on the 30th floor know it was going to rain?
Because he had a better perspective.
He has a better perspective, and he can see the clouds coming.
Right.
The man on the sidewalk, his vision is skewed. The man inside the building, he's not concerned what's going on because in his perspective, in his subjectivity, I don't have to deal with the elements. I'm gonna let him deal with that.
Right.
The man on the third floor, he can't see past the buildings.
Right.
The man on the 15th floor, he's on. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So our subjectivity pushes us to where we at.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just what it is.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So
I was saying, you remember, I was going somewhere with I wasn't.
Well, sometimes you got, in your perspectives, or all of us in our perspective, we have to be like the TV screen, how it was broken down to me probably about 3 years ago, and I just heard it again this morning.
Right.
You have to be the TV screen. The TV screen doesn't change.
Right.
No.
It's what's presented on the TV screen
that changes.
Got things
Horror,
going on.
action, news. Right.
All of that is going on the
TV
TV screen.
Right.
Turn the channels, you'll get this, you'll get that. But the the TV screen never changes.
Right.
And
That's
that's how
powerful.
we have to be as, I would say, as human beings, being the movie screen, letting these things
Just flow.
come and let them go.
Let them
Channel
flow.
flip.
It's the
Let
same
the
thing.
channel
It's
flip.
a
Cycle
meditative
channels.
principle. It's a meditative principle. And yeah, we were the shadow. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's going back to what I said before I forget it again. It's have full acceptance of the shadow
Yes.
and loving it
Yes.
for what it brought to you, because it was actually a tool. These things that you look down upon was actually a tool to elevate you or project you to a certain place of consciousness. And once you accept that shadow, you become truly whole and complete. And you could speak about these things without having any fear, reservations or anything, because at the end of the day, everyone goes through something, and everyone has something that, based on their social, economical, familial outlook on life, they put a stigma on it. But in reality, it's just your learning curve,
Exactly.
and it's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Exactly.
And you know what? I want to remind you of something I said earlier. You know, even through all of that, keep in mind, you know, you're building a energetic pattern,
Yes.
right? So through each one of these, right, you're building an energetic pattern, or right, you are continuing in one that you've already established.
Right.
So either you're gonna advance forward, right, or you know you're gonna go through it again, and
Which is retardation.
it is.
It's to an extent you could say spiritual retardation.
But and these are the elements that you take with you when you step through the gate of death.
Right.
And either you've advanced or you come back and you do it again.
Right.
Do it again. Is when you say patterns,
Patterns.
right? And you're talking about the snowflake and all of that. Me being in DJing, right? I think about music. So my question would be, who are you when the music start playing? What patterns or shapes you become?
Oh, you know what you become
Oh,
when
well,
the
you know I already know.
you
know I already know.
You know what you
You know
become
what I'm
when the
saying?
music come on.
You know what I'm saying? But then you got to look at the flip side when someone's not used to that music.
It brings them suffering.
It brings them something. They have to get away.
Right.
So who are you? What are you when these music start playing or these vibrations starts to play? Who are you? Find yourself within the patterns or the vibrations.
That's
It'll let you know.
interesting.
And you know what? There's something else we was talking about earlier this week. We were talking about how a collective vibration or a collective consciousness,
Right.
Right.
you know, it shoots forth, you know, like what we would term as a leader.
Right.
And that leader is the vocal expression of the one frame
Right.
of consciousness.
Right now, the earth is like it's in a healing. It's actually in a healing pattern, and this is, again, I'm speaking in a way that some people are gonna understand, some people are not, and if you don't, it's okay. It's a lot of deaths that's happened over the last few years. You know, the onset of COVID. You know, a lot of we've seen a lot of young people, at least in, from what
in Ukraine.
stuff that's going to Ukraine, African American communities, rappers, so on and so forth. And people are trying to figure, they're like, wow, he was only 16 or he's only 19 and he's only this and that. And it's the speeding up of perception of time and karma. Karma is being burnt up because we're moving to an elevated state of consciousness. And those people that are either they're trying to catch up, or the time they can no longer vibrate in this space of awareness anymore.
They can't take the music out.
They expire. They choose to expire. Right. Situations are called upon them. They're put in certain places and certain areas to where it's time for them to go. And I know it may sound cold and callous. I can only say how I say it.
Right.
And it's in certain communities they may see a crisis coming. You could look for a specific person, but again, we're a collective consciousness, and the earth has been very dyslexic over the past several eons. You know what I'm saying? Ups, downs, lefts, rights. We want to go this way. We want to go that way. And we're clashing. Now we're trying to work things out, and we're moving to an elevated state to where Christ is returning, but he's returning within each and every person that you look at. The consciousness is elevating. It's a collective. It's one being. We are one being. So I say that to bring ease to some of the people that are trying to figure out the suffering is a part of the process, or the perceived suffering is a part of the process. It's the love of God, which is to learn self.
Right.
Be balanced.
Be balanced.
Be balanced.
Be able to go
Left, right, up, down.
What did it say about Yeshua, whom they call Jesus the Christ? He was amongst the tax collectors, the harlots. He went everywhere that the perceivably knowledgeable, intellectual lawgivers, the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes. These were the people that everybody was revering.
Exactly.
But he went everywhere that they wouldn't go.
Right.
And he went to those, not to those who needed him. He went to those
The
that
lost.
need the lost, the sleep.
The lost. Right.
And you can only follow somebody that you see something like yourself within them.
Man, I could take that left right now and say something, but I'm gonna leave it, because if I do that, we gonna go on we gonna go ahead and go 180 or go 245 or something, because it was an interesting conversation. And somebody said something, and I looked at it. I was like, "Yo, that actually makes sense."
What's that? You remember what they said?
I do. I don't want to overstep.
You can say it. We just probably we'll do like
You edit it out.
no wait I ain't. Oh, is it that bad? That I
It's
need to
not
edit
that
it?
bad, but what I would say is, if I say it, you're gonna be like, "Ooh." I guarantee.
No, I tell you what, we'll do it off camera.
Let's do it off camera,
we'll do
because
it then.
if I
And
say
then
it,
if
you're
it's
gonna be like, you're gonna look at me like.
And then if it's something we need to discuss, we'll bring it up back on the topic.
No, it goes back to what he said about the lost. About you have to see yourself. For you to follow somebody, you have to see yourself in that person.
Or something that you feel that you desire in
Right.
you, that you want to attach
And
yourself
it's-
to that person.
You know what? Let's table it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's table it, because if I say it right now,
It's gonna be off the chain.
it's going.
It might take us off.
It's going to
topic.
get epic. It's going to get uncomfortably epic.
So.
Man,
But yeah, man. Oh, good discussion. Good discussion today. You don't have another question or nothing, right? Adon? You good?
I mean, I think we
Yeah,
I think we addressed the topic pretty good.
Right.
I think so too. Hopefully everybody's get edified by it. And like I say, the books that we presented.
The Fourth Agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Four Agreements.
Great book. Four Agreements. Sorry.
right. And the chart. What was that chart?
It was the Kabbalistic Tree of Life.
Yeah.
There's different versions of it. I have an actual. I don't have it with me now. It's downstairs, but I have an actual like a laminated copy,
laminated.
and it has the traditional tree. Then it actually has the pillars.
Right.
Boaz, Joachim, and I forget what the middle pillar is called, but
Yeah, just look it up, and I'm pretty sure it'll come up on your thread if you want to get it. If not, then just take a look at it.
And for those of you that may watch, whenever place and time that you come across these videos, it's really directed to those of you, not just those of you, but it's directed to all people. But I want those who are going through their spiritual awakening to know that you are not alone. And we're here for you. Just reach out, hit us in the DMs.
Right.
And yeah.
All right.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, fam.
Love and light.
Shalom.